Before Meghan and Diana, before Netflix series turned palaces into soap operas, there was Princess Alice of Battenberg, the deaf, diamond-trading, Nazi-defying mother of Prince Philip, whose life reads like an action thriller wrapped in a prayer book. Born in Windsor Castle, exiled to France, imprisoned in a Swiss asylum, and hailed in Israel as righteous among the nations, Alice sprinted through 6 coups, 2 world wars, and a famine armed with nothing but iron faith and a suitcase full of bandages. How did a great-granddaughter of Queen Victoria end up smuggling Jews past the Gestapo, pawning tiaras to feed orphans, and founding a secret order of nursing nuns on a Greek island? Hit play and discover the untold royal story that history textbooks skipped, but your curiosity won't forgive. If you love period drama, World War II intrigue, and unstoppable female heroes who refuse to sit quietly, this is your next obsession. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Alice is about to overhaul everything you thought you knew about royalty, and she will rewrite the definition of courage for modern times. Imagine unrolling a tapestry across your screen, 6 feet of velvet stitched with pewter skies, gunmetal seas and telegrams scrawled in royal ink. On one corner, Windsor Castle, February 25, 1885, dawn thin as parchment. Footmen rub frost off stained glass saints. Fireplaces grumble awake. And in the nursery, the newest great-grandchild of Queen Victoria opens her blue-gray eyes. She's christened Victoria Alice Elizabeth Julia Marie, but the palace nursery maids just call her Little Alice, the way you might name a hurricane before you realize it will rearrange future coastlines. The princess weighs less than a doctor's bag and can't possibly know that by her 80th birthday she'll have survived 6 coups, 2 world wars, a forced psychiatric confinement, a famine, and the kind of heartbreak novels outsourced to melodrama. Bounce ahead a decade. The Battenberg family train shudders through Europe like a glittering circus, offloading children and governesses, in whichever resort is currently fashionable or politically neutral. Alice, 10, perches by the window translating station signs because reading lips from a distance is how she practices stealth, her own private superpower to replace the hearing she's never had. She lip reads a Swiss porter muttering that royal children look like porcelain figurines. She lip reads her mother complaining that diplomats smell of cigar smoke and compromise. At night, she cups a candle, studies her mouth in the mirror, and reverse engineers syllables no one has bothered to teach in sign. By 12, she can hurl perfect French idioms at flustered waiters and correct her tutor's German grammar. Adults applaud the miracle without realizing she's running a one-woman laboratory in resilience. Her father, Prince Louis of Battenberg, is a naval commander, forever packing new uniforms. Her mother, Princess Victoria, is a granddaughter of the Queen, who treats European cousins like chess pieces on a velvet board. They love their firstborn ferociously, yet never quite banish the gloom that something's wrong. In 1894, a fashionable Viennese physician charges a month's rent to announce what a schoolgirl with a whistle could have diagnosed: congenital sensorineural deafness. No cure, he shrugs, recommending that Alice avoid undue stimulation. Translation: keep the royal swan hidden lest anyone notice its crooked wing. Alice instead chooses adrenaline, horseback races against her brothers, scraping palms on alpine cliffs, learning to lip-read Hungarian guides describing bear tracks. Enter the 20th century, crashing cymbals first. June 1901, London erupts in purple bunting for Edward VII's coronation. 16-year-old Alice resembles moonlight poured into lace, half bored, half thrilled, trailing her mother down Westminster Abbey's mosaic floor. A bored glance over her shoulder meets a pair of storm-gray eyes, and a conspiratorial grin. Prince Andrew of Greece and Denmark, third son of King George III of the Hellenes, currently chain-lighting cigarettes despite abbey prohibitions. Within seconds, he's begging her pardon in accented English, so musical she feels the vibrations through the carpet. Court gossips later insist it was thunderbolt love. Alice will insist nothing so messy as thunder, more like a tuning fork vibrating preposterously on the correct note. They dance at the afterball, scribble letters across continents, and marry 16 months later in Darmstadt under chandeliers that haven't cooled since the last Tsar visited. Reporters lap up the optics. Deaf British-German princess weds dashing Greek sailor, proof they chirp that Europe's royal cousins remain one big happy family. Spoiler, the family is about to implode. Greece at the turn of the century is a tinderbox of Balkan ambitions and treasury shortfalls. The new Princess Andrew exchanges honeymoon roses for Red Cross bandages when the Balkan Wars ignite in 1912. She helps convert a summer palace into a field hospital, stitches soldiers' coats, and lip-reads surgeons, barking for ether. By 1913, she's pregnant with first daughter Margarita, balancing morning sickness against cannon fire, echoing from Thessaloniki. Over the next 10 years, she'll birth Theodora, Cecilia, Sophie, and finally, in 1921, the tow-headed Philip, who will eventually recast himself as Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. Between christenings, she perfects the art of evacuation. The family flees Greek Republican mobs in 1917, hides in a Swiss chalet furnished with borrowed blankets, returns to Athens in 1920 to cheering crowds, only to watch the monarchy topple again after military catastrophe in Asia Minor. That catastrophe, annihilation of the Greek army on the shores of Smyrna, turns Andrew from naval hero to political scapegoat. Revolutionary tribunals start sharpening guillotines. Alice walks marble corridors begging God for a third-act miracle. It arrives in the shape of HMS Calypso, a British cruiser flashing semaphore orders to rescue the royal family. Soldiers drag Andrew onto deck, still wearing his court-martial uniform. A nanny lowers baby Philip into a fruit crate labeled oranges, and Alice pockets a handful of Greek soil because she's no longer sure she'll see it again. Paris is their next refuge, though calling it refuge stretches the term. They lodge in a modest villa donated by wealthy relatives, swap palace chefs for a single housekeeper who swears in Provençal and counts centimes before ordering coal. Andrew smokes and plays bridge. The princess wanders Paris boulevards eavesdropping via lips on painters, anarchists, and nuns. Something in their fervor lights a fuse. She reads The Way of a Pilgrim, meets Russian Orthodox emigres reciting the Jesus prayer like oxygen, and feels her heart cadence shift. Soon she's attending all-night vigils, selling family jewelry to feed street children, and discussing fasting rules with monks who underestimate her theological arsenal. Andrew doesn't understand the pivot from royal hostess to mystic apprentice. For him, religion fits neatly between parades and parlor etiquette. For her, it's wildfire. Exhausted by arguments, he retreats to Monte Carlo casinos, leaving Alice to navigate an interior earthquake alone. That isolation seeds hallucinations or revelations, depending on your viewpoint. She wakes certain that St. Paul hovers by the wardrobe, dictating instructions for a nursing order. She writes pages of visionary geometry, explaining how to interlace Western medicine and Byzantine prayer. Courtiers whisper that the princess, already defective by hearing, has now cracked in mind. The family convenes a medical intervention. Doctors produce psychiatry's latest vocabulary, paranoid schizophrenia with messianic delusions. Their consensus prescription: Sequestration in the Sanatorium Bellevue, run by Dr. Ludwig Binswanger, Switzerland's pioneer of existential psychotherapy. Alice fights like a cornered tigress, clings to banisters, refuses chloroform. She's pried loose, transported by night train, and wakes behind manicured hedges smelling of lavender and antiseptic. Nurses confiscate her Bible because marginalia might agitate her. Sigmund Freud, consulting via telegram, recommends heavy X-ray bombardment of the ovaries to subdue excess libido, the same protocol he's touted for hysterical women convinced of divine missions. Alice endures the procedure once, vomits, and later jokes it only succeeded in overcooking her breakfast eggs. Confinement lasts 762 days. She writes weekly to her mother, letters officials censor, letters that survive in archives inked with furious underlining. I am not ill. I am uncrucified. They fear my sanity because it is inconvenient. She studies staff schedules, times door clicks, attempts escape thrice. The third attempt ends yards from freedom when her skirt catches on a rose trellis and rips loud enough to summon guards. Binswanger calls her the most relentlessly lucid patient I have ever misdiagnosed. In 1931, he quietly releases her, cautioning relatives that spiritual passion isn't necessarily madness. Alice exits barefoot. It's easier to feel the earth's pulse, she claims, and boards a train to Italy, then another to Germany, eventually reuniting with Mother Princess Victoria. Andrew declines to visit. Her 4 daughters, meanwhile, are busy marrying German princes, some with burgeoning Nazi sympathies. Philip, now 12, is deposited at Cheam School in England, bouncing between uncles like diplomatic luggage. Mother and son exchange rare letters still filed in Windsor archives. She signs them, "Your ever-loving Athenae," studding margins with doodles of halos and anchors. 1937 slams down like a steel curtain. Alice, living quietly in Darmstadt, receives word that Cecilia's plane has vanished. Hours later, the telegram clarifies, fog, crash, fire, no survivors. She travels overnight to the state funeral hosted by Hermann Göring, stands under swastika banners, feeling grief and revulsion hotwire her spine. Philip, 16 and in Royal Navy cadet uniform, approaches, eyes red. They clasp hands, no words survive. The photo of that moment will later circulate in tabloids, calling them awkward strangers. They were not strangers, only casualties of history's diaspora. 2 years later, Hitler invades Poland. Greece mobilizes against Italy, then Germany. The royal family evacuates once more, this time to South Africa. Alice refuses. A shepherd does not abandon her flock to wolves, she says, quoting neither scripture nor politics, but something forged entirely inside her. She returns to Athens, rents 2 floors in a neoclassical townhouse, strips blue silk curtains to bandage soldiers from the Albanian front. When Germany overruns the mainland in April 1941, she stays put. The Wehrmacht officers who requisition neighboring houses offer her transport. She replies that deafness already grants her silence. She has no need of distance. Occupation Athens is a study in starvation. Bread lines coil past shuttered cafes. A black market trades olives for morphine. Alice organizes soup kitchens financed by selling her last tiara. She recruits cabaret performers to stir lentils, aristocrats to scrub cauldrons. Whichever priest or rabbi or imam will bless the stew because calories outrank dogma. She smuggles Red Cross parcels from neutral Sweden under the pretext of delivering laundry. Nobody checks a princess's hampers. Her hearing loss becomes camouflage. German guards assume shouting is useless and wave her through. In December 1943, she hides Rachel Cohen, widow of the late Greek parliamentarian Haimaki Cohen, along with 2 of Rachel's children, in attic rooms. When Gestapo officers appear, she affects confusion, leans forward as if strains to hear, then smiles beatifically until interrogation drowns in awkwardness. Winter 1944. 45 writes tragedy in plural. Cholera creeps through slums. Communist partisans exchange sniper fire with British troops. Mortar blasts turn sidewalks to dust. Alice still walks each morning to the Areopagus Hill Outlook, planting herself against marble older than Christianity, praying sunrise into existence. Locals whisper she's a saint. British diplomats worry she's expendable collateral. She rejects evacuation thrice. One afternoon, a ricochet cracks masonry inches above her head. A passerby screams. Alice turns signs "Christ is risen" with orthodox fingers and continues distributing bread. Liberation arrives October 1944. Alice weighs 90 pounds, owns one threadbare cardigan, but her address book contains dozens of names next to check marks indicating fed, housed, saved. She could claim medals, instead she claims a vow. Found a nursing order in peacetime. Funding? Superfluous. She's sure Providence will sort it. And it sort of does. Wealthy Greek widows donate dowries. British ex-servicemen haul medical equipment. Alice herself dons dove-gray habit. Trading princess for Mother Superior, though no canonical church quite knows what to do with a royal founder who still swears in sailor's Greek when the autoclave jams. Spring 1947 triggers a different drama. London wedding bells. Philip proposes to 21-year-old Princess Elizabeth with a ring wrought from diamonds clipped off Alice's last surviving tiara. Reporters coo about romance. She chuckles that pawnshops make unusual cupids. At Westminster Abbey, she processes in her nun's habit, steel spectacles glinting under television arc lights. Viewers at home misidentify her as an obscure abbess imported for liturgical flair. She doesn't correct them. Post-wedding, she rides a London bus back to her lodging, habit pinned around coronet headphones so she can lip-read fellow passengers, gossiping about that odd old nun. In 1950, her nursing sisterhood secures a dilapidated mansion near the island of Aegina. Alice personally wields a pickaxe to smash moldy tiles, quoting Isaiah about raising up ancient ruins. She establishes wards for tuberculosis patients, orphan dormitories, and a small chapel where Orthodox chants interleave with British choral hymns because inclusivity tastes better than dogma. Money evaporates, electric bills go unpaid. Once facing utility cutoff, she pawns the diamond brooch Elizabeth gave as repayment for the tiara stones. When AIDS protests, she shrugs. Jewels prefer circulation. The order limps heroically until April 1966 when Greek tax inspectors threaten foreclosure. BBC producers, sniffing an irresistible profile, send a crew. The resulting documentary shows Alice sipping weak tea beneath a broken ceiling fan, explaining that voluntary poverty is different from destitution because it's chosen. Viewers mail checks, some as small as 1 shilling. Collectively, they clear the debt. A nun who watched the broadcast later writes, "Her deafness forced cameras to linger on her eyes, and in them I saw the war still burning, but also Galilee." May 1967. Colonel Papadopoulos seizes Athens in a coup. Machine gun nests sprout beside the Parthenon. Alice, 79, refuses exit visas for her nuns. British diplomats finally appeal to Philip, now international consort, to extract his mother. He flies to Athens, armed with palace authority and childhood guilt. The reunion is unscripted. He pleads, she jokes, he threatens, she sighs, packs exactly 1 suitcase, habits, prayer rope, Greek New Testament, and allows an RAF aircraft to whisk her to Heathrow. At Buckingham, she's allotted Suite 200, formerly used by minor dukes. She donates half her daily meal allotment to the palace guards. Old age rarely respects cinematic symmetry, but hers bends gracefully. Grandchildren visit for theology debates. She admonishes Charles to read Dostoevsky before writing speeches. She dines occasionally with Elizabeth II, mostly to lobby for Greek refugees or to request leftover candle stubs for the sisters. Palatial doctors fret over her heart. She jokes hearts only worry the living. In November 1969, she catches pneumonia. Staff urge hospital transfer. She refuses. On December 5th, the household notes her breathing slow, her fingers still counting prayers. At sunset, she makes the sign of the cross in the air, a last embrace meant for no one and everyone. Death would usually cue state funeral spectacle, but Alice left instructions scrawled on hotel stationery years earlier. No crowns, no mahogany, no embalming, and bury me in Jerusalem near Grand Duchess Elizabeth. Trouble is, Israel and Jordan remain at daggers drawn post-Six-Day War. Logistical chaos freezes plans, so her coffin rests temporarily inside St. George's Chapel, Windsor, shrouded in a nun's veil instead of a royal standard. Not until 1988 do Greek officials, British diplomats, and Israeli monks coordinate the improbable convoy. RAF plane to Tel Aviv, armored car to the Mount of Olives, candlelit procession through olive terraces older than the language of kings. There, under pink evening sky, a Greek bishop chants Memory Eternal as nuns lower the casket into limestone. Pilgrims pass later and see nothing but a brass plaque reading Her Royal Highness Princess Alice, Duchess of Greece, righteous among the nations.